So my name's Brad Picard from Oxbow Architecture. Unfortunately, Richard's stuck in Heathrow right now, so he'll be with us tomorrow during our crit session, but you're stuck with me. So our project's located in Saskatchewan, and that is where our practice is based, Oxbow. And the province of Saskatchewan, the site itself is on Treaty 4 territory. So it is the homeland of the Métis, the Anishinaabe, the Cree, Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, and the Saulteaux nations. And we'd like to acknowledge that as we understand our land. This next slide demonstrates the arbitrary nature of the province's boundaries. The province of Saskatchewan, it's funny, it's known as the province that's easy to draw, but difficult to pronounce. Saskatchewan, the word is a Cree word, and it means swift-flowing river. The provincial boundaries were largely guided by the grid system that enabled the efficient settlement of the land for European migrants, but it displaced many local people and cultures. The provincial boundary had no regard to local ecologies, cultures, or landforms. So Muscowpetung Saulteaux Nation, Muscowpetung is the nation that we're working with on this project, and it's located about 60 kilometers north of Regina, which is the capital of Saskatchewan. There's historical records that show that Muscowpetung Band had occupied a much larger territory at the time of the treaty. And there's current land claims and legal struggles going through the court system to reclaim some of that land. And it is a means for the nation to confront the intergenerational loss of culture and wealth. And this project seeks to address some of those issues. So the project itself is a venue for hosting Powwow. So a powwow is essentially a circuit, a dance circuit. It's prevalent in North America. Participants seek trophies and titles, and it's a highly sought after competition, and it goes from nation to nation, typically. Often nations don't have venues. It is often outside, but in some cases there are small shade structures that enable a bit more of a comfortable environment for the dance and for the spectators. The events themselves are also an economic generator for the local nations. Selling of crafts, regalia, food, and even just streetwear is an important aspect for the community. So this is the site for the Powwow Arbour. It's right on the edge of the Capella River, an open plain, and it is part of the traditional land for Muscowpetung. There was a buffalo jump just to the left of the site, and the site is very sacred in the community, and it's where they currently hold their culture camp for the children in school to be with the elders during the summertime and learn traditional ways. This is a drawing just showing an overview of the proposed site for the Powwow Arbour. So in the foreground you have parking. Typically a powwow is held over a weekend. So there's day parking there. There's camping with RVs and tents over to the right. There's a culture camp circle where you can see the setup of teepees. And then just beyond that is the medicinal garden and orchard that the community hopes to locate near the new arbor. So the circle drives a lot of the forms. In Muscowpetung culture, it's a sacred form. So it is really embedded in everything that we planned for this project. So this is, again, that site overview, but as a plan, showing some of those key elements. So the circle itself, we wanted to make sure that the structure was based on the circle, and it really only works if it's a circle. So it is a combination of struts and tensile elements and ring structures that form the basis of the superstructure. We also wanted to embed cultural references and ideas through talking with the local knowledge keepers and elders and understanding how you can reinforce design through a better understanding of their traditions and ceremony. So this is a photo of a ceremony. It's not from Muscowpetung, but it's a little further south by Edward Curtis, and it shows the arrow ceremony of the Estinda. We also wanted to make sure that the arbor could be built locally as possible. So working with the community, making sure that the arbor itself is an economic generator, sourcing local materials. Forests are just north of the site, a few hundred kilometers away, making sure that the nail laminated timber panels are simple enough in their execution that community members can build them themselves and erect the tripod elements that form the base structure for the arbor. Even the methodology of how do you build this thing is really important, that many hands with low skill can build it. So each concentric ring would be built and then lifted up, and then the following ring would be built and then lifted up. And so that way most of the work and labor happens at grade, and it's a lot safer for the build. So this is a rendering of the interior showing the articulation of the structure. There is intentionally gaps between the nail laminated timber as they lap to allow for diffuse light. It is completely open. It's an open air structure. These events only happen during the warm seasons in Canada. And so that's important. We've also specified shade tolerant grasses with our landscape team to ensure that the dance surface is a natural surface. This section really just dives into the overall organization of the structure. So at the base, you have the tripods that radiate around the circle. They also integrate with the bleacher seating. And above that is the first primary structural ring that goes around the edge, and then the structure lifts up from there. So these are a few parameters that we needed to work with. There is a perimeter around the dance circle that acts as the areas where the drum circles are located. It's important to incorporate elder seating that's accessible, and it's just to the north of the announcer's booth, which is that circle diagram. I'm moving down from the left. And the cardinal points are very important to Muscowpetung and to traditional cultures on the prairies, and ensuring that the entrance comes from the east was a key aspect of it, and that the dance revolves in a clockwise and can accommodate that, and then the other cardinal points are expressed as exits. Again, the shade tolerant grasses. The roof area, we've done calculations to make sure that the medicinal garden and orchard could accommodate some irrigation. It is a dry part of Canada, and there's plans for photovoltaic integration that could potentially power about half of the homes of the nation. There's about 320 people that live on the nation, and so that could accommodate about 40 or 50 homes all year. So there's a plan. It's very simple. Number one is the grand entry, and just to the north of that is the announcer's booth. And then to the north of that is where the elders would be seated. And then again, you have the perimeter on the outside that would have the stalls that would be covered under the roof area, the bleacher seating, the drum circle, outer ring, and then the interior ring is where the dance would occur. Just a very simple axonometric that shows how all the components come together. We also wanted to make sure that steel elements could be locally fabricated as much as possible. We developed the end of the strut detail to do two things, and I'll wrap up shortly. to number one, use plate steel and be able to be cut and welded by local fabricators. And they also express the tensile forces acting on them. It was important for us to do physical modeling with the nation to give them an understanding of the articulation of the structure, but also really just to really get on board the design and fall in love with it. It also acted as a test of the structural system for us. And it was a team building exercise for our small studio as well. And so, I mean, we can model this quite easily in 3D, but it was really important for the nation to have something that they could own and really communicate the story back to the members. And I think that's the one thing that I've noticed going back to the community is that the Arbour model has a really special spot in the band office, and that the community members and especially the admin staff are telling the merits of the design to just the community members that come into the office. I'll just leave you with one last image. Thank you.